Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's speed build day, yay! If you're returning, hello, it's so good to see you again. Thank you for coming back. And if you're new, hi, my name's Annika and I play The Sims. So today I am building a micro home. I decided to call this one a micro barn just because it's red. The entire house is red. I painted every single thing red in the house. Not inside the house, like the outside. But other than that, it's really not a barn at all. It is just red. So I only used one pack in this game, except I made a mistake. I was going through the footage and I realized that for the flooring on the outside of the house, I accidentally used cats and dogs. There's a base game flooring, very similar. See, I'm using the cats and dogs one, so I'm so sorry. If you don't have cats and dogs, you can just replace it with a normal base game flooring. But other than that, everything else is base game and tiny living, so I do apologize for that. But here I'm just making a fake porch because I used all of my tiles on the inside of the house because I wanted it to be as big as possible. I ended up just placing flooring on the outside of the house and putting fences around it, and I'm going to put columns next to make it look like a real porch. And the game doesn't recognize this as tiles that count towards your micro home, so I kind of just did some tricks like that throughout the entire build. You'll see when I build something else on the outside, I ended up just deleting the flooring, and that helped keep it a 32 tile micro home. So yeah, here I'm just adding roof trimming. I originally had red and I was like, no, this is too much red. It doesn't even match the red that I painted the house. And so I went with white, and I really like the way that the white looks because it just looks more like a barn. I don't know why I have this idea of a barn in my head and I can't get it out. But I tried to use this weird thing that they use in Oasis Springs, but it just didn't look right. When it was its normal size, it just didn't look right, and then when it was sized up, it looked funny. So I ended up just adding a new roof piece so I could have something covering my porch, again to make it look as real as possible. And I think at the end, it ended up looking pretty real. And it didn't look like, I just placed some flooring on the ground. But the main part of the house is the outside. That's what I think makes this build so special, is not the actual house. So you'll see I spend the majority of the time in this speed build on the outside. So here I'm just trying to make the roof look as normal as possible and just all blend together. So I'm getting rid of the overhang. I'm, adding trim to the new one. And I think it ended up looking pretty good. I didn't add a chimney because there was no fireplace, so I feel like I didn't need a chimney. But I'm just adding a little chair here. I was debating on whether or not I wanted 2 chairs. But I think this house can technically sleep 2 Sims, like a husband and wife, or like 2 spouses. I think it can sleep 2 of them, but I use the Murphy bed. So the Murphy bed is pushed up against the wall, and if you can get your Sims to scoot over, then you could sleep 2 Sims, but if you can't, then I guess it's a 1 Sim house. So here I'm building the greenhouse, and like I was mentioning earlier, I just removed the floor of the greenhouse and it didn't count it as tiles. So I just put windows all around the walls, and then I put like a glass roof color on the roof. And there is a lot of overhang on this one, but I did like the way it turned out. So if you don't like overhang, you can just like take it away, but I like the way that the overhang looked on this one. I'm just adding some pots. I didn't put any plants in this, so when you actually go, if you're gonna play on this house, it will be on the gallery. You can just have your Sims plant in here, and I put some like fake decoration plants outside of it just to make it look as put together and as intentional as possible. So there's a lot of landscaping in this house. There is a lot, so just beware. I wanted to add, as you saw right there, I was adding a pond from Debug, and it ended up being way too big. And then when I tried to size it down, it did not look right. The water was like spilling out of the pond. It was clearly wrong. Like it clearly did not work. So I ended up just making a funky shaped pool and putting lily pads in it and plants all around it. I spent a long time doing that to make it look like an actual pond. I think your Sims will still swim in this. I'm not sure with the lily pads. I think they will still swim in it though. So just be aware your Sims might want to swim in your pond. But I ended up making the trim of the pool green because I felt like it blended with the grass better than the brown did, and I added terrain paint just to make it look more real. I feel like terrain paint is such a useful tool, especially because it's free. Like, I love terrain paint. So I ended up turning move objects on when I was building this pond because I thought that it would just make all the landscaping easier. If you don't know what move objects is, it's basically a cheat that allows you to place objects wherever you want. Like, there are no restrictions, so you can literally place objects within each other. So I ended up doing that for this pond. I turned it off and on throughout the build, but I was really adamant about making everything function in the Sims in this specific house. So yeah, I really liked the way that this turned out. I am very proud of it. I'll do a little spin for you here in a sec, but there it is. But I love it. I was really proud of this. It's my favorite thing I've ever built, like outside in the Sims versus inside a house. I thought it turned out really well. So I'm not done landscaping yet. I just decided that I was going to focus on the inside of the house because I wanted to keep the costs as low as possible. I'm not saying that this is a starter home. I was trying to make it a starter home. It just didn't work out that way because I wanted to focus so much on the outside, and I just spent a lot of money on landscaping. You can use debug landscaping. It just makes it free or very low cost. I ended up not doing that. I just want to keep everything real. So in case you didn't want to turn the debug on, that's fine. There's nothing from debug in this build. I was looking for things to put like plants, but I ended up not using anything, so there's no debug in this actual build. So I didn't know where to put the bathroom. I'm trying to build it here. As you can see, I wanted to have like the bathroom be kind of in the middle and you can move on both sides, but each side was one tile long. I was like, okay, you can't do anything with those, so we need to change it. So I ended up pushing it to the side, and the kitchen was going to be on the other side of the bathroom, but the kitchen being a 2x2 is practically impossible. I mean, it's not really like functioning, so I ended up making the kitchen a little bit bigger, and it was going to extend along the hallway. For the bathroom, I just used the cheapest stuff because I felt like the money would be spent somewhere else. I mean, if you want to have your sim just move into a normal like base game starter home, and then you can have them paint and get a job and work for like a week, and then you can move them here. So I put the sink in front of the window in the bathroom, and I really liked the way that looked. I feel like it made the bathroom as big as possible. So I ended up adding a full-length mirror on the side, so you still would have a mirror in this build, but it just wouldn't be over the sink. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's fine. Not every sink has a mirror over it. I mean, if everyone in the world has a mirror over their sink, then I was desperately wrong. But that's okay. So I didn't use the cheapest kitchen appliances. I used what I call the starter home ones, because every time I play a starter home, I always put those in there, just because the real cheap ones are just horrible, and your sim will catch on fire. So I turned move objects off because I wanted to make sure that the door would work. So it ended up working right there, and I thought that was pretty cool. And it gave me this whole wall to use to put the dining table in. I couldn't find the same wood swatch that I used for Tiny Living. Like, why doesn't The Sims have the same wood swatches? So I ended up literally, I was like, oh, nothing's matching. It looks really bad. And I ended up just going with the white table. All that for a white table. That's okay though. And then I also used Tiny Living's chairs again. Tiny Living, I love it. It is one of my favorite packs. I also like Parenthood and University, but I really like Tiny Living. It's a great stuff pack. If you do not have it, I think you definitely should get it. Wait till it goes on sale though. I have never bought any extras for The Sims when they're not on sale, because they always go half off. 25% off or half off like every weekend, so just wait. It's not that big of a deal to pay $40 for an expansion pack. I mean, I haven't paid $40 for an expansion pack. I just wait for them to go on sale, and it works out the best like that. So here I was like, okay, I need to add something, because the only skill building item is the computer. So I was looking for the Tiny Living bookshelf as I pulled out here, and then I ended up realizing that they had a bookshelf and a bed combined. It was already combined as one object, and so there wouldn't be like any problems with my Sims trying to use them. So I just switched it out to be together. Yeah. And I use this flooring. I really, really like this flooring. I don't really use it in my house that often because there's like different tones. But this house on the inside ended up being, like, the actual furniture was a lot of white and tan. So I figured that this flooring gave it a little more depth. And then the yellow wall. I love that yellow wall with like the squares. And I think it's called like gingham or something like that. I can't pronounce it. With the paneling on the side, I love this wall. I use it all the time, especially in my teenagers' rooms. But I really like this one because it gave it like a cutesy-esque cottage vibe. So I really like the way that it looked. And I added more color because you can never have too much color. So I even added more color light bulbs. Those are from Tiny Living. But this little thing I'm placing in the bathroom right now is probably one of my favorite objects in The Sims. I love it so much. It's like so cute. And I know it's specifically for bathrooms, but I definitely use it when it's not in a bathroom. Like, I know it's like a whole loofah, but I still use it outside of bathrooms. Not in this build, but in other builds. Also, that coffee mug, they just added it in an update, and I love it. I love it so much. It's so cute and just makes everything in Sims look so much more personal. And I think if you add personality and you make it seem like there's someone actually living here, your Sims build just looks so much better. And clutter is my favorite thing to do. When you're able to decorate and just add so much clutter, it just makes your build way more fun and just better to look at. Yeah, so I'm adding a cookie jar, some spatulas, mugs, all the jam, and some soap. And then here I was playing with the counters, or the cabinets, not counters. I didn't want to do all of them. Like, all of the counters are gonna have overhead cabinets. It was just I felt like it was gonna be too much. So I ended up picking the cool ones from it and just made 3, and I liked the way it looked. It ended up turning out really well. I was like the Tiny Living paintings, it just didn't match the vibe of this house. So I ended up using that like plant hanging thing multiple times because that is another one of my favorite objects. Tiny Living has some pretty good clutter items, like that plant succulent hanging thing, the bathroom thing, and do you guys like know that little coffee table tray they have in Tiny Living with like candles on it? I didn't need it in this build. I kept trying to find it, but like find a place for it, it just didn't work out because it needed a whole counter and I just didn't have that space. So I ended up not using it. But I used this farm painting over the dining table because I was like, oh, that's so fitting. You know, it's a micro barn. Here's a big barn. I don't know why I thought that was so funny, but it was in my mind. So I did the sunflower right there on the table. I don't know if your Sims can eat there. I think they can. If they can't, then you can just delete the sunflower. No big deal. So I finished decorating the inside and I was like, okay, now I have to finish landscaping the outside. I always do that. I always start briefly on the outside with landscaping and get a base idea of what I want to do, and then I go back and add like the details. Landscaping can be frustrating but fun at the same time. Like, it can be one of the hardest things to do in the Sims, but also like the most fun because it changes your builds. Like, if you have good landscaping and a crap build, it looks so much better. Like, your build just looks so much better. It's completely elevated when you have good landscaping versus when you have bad landscaping or no landscaping at all in a good build. I'm not saying your build looks bad, it just looks better. Here's me using terrain paint again. I love terrain paint. I felt like these little stones just made it look like so little cottagey. I thought that was super fun, so I just brought it to the bench over there by the pond. So like wrapped around the house. But yeah, I am just making dirt underneath the plants and like the trees, the plants. I guess trees are plants, but it just gives it more depth, and it makes it just look better in my opinion. But yeah, it took me. It's definitely like a kind of tedious thing to do to add terrain paint to all your plants, but in the end, I think it's worth it. I think that that is something really good to add. So we're getting near the end here. I'm just doing some final touches here. I added a little farm, I guess you could say. It's basically just 2 stripes of dirt that you can plant there. I think you can plant like 4 things there, or if you want to plant like apple trees and not plant them in the greenhouse, you can plant them there. I just added these fake, or I guess they're real, but these bushes that aren't real plants, you know, just for screenshots, but when you actually play, you probably want to delete those if you want to plant something there. So I'm just adding some lights. I always forget to do lights, so I just added some around the house. This is the last thing I did before the screenshots. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build. I really had fun with it. Definitely if you want to download it, it'll be on the gallery. It's the same name as my YouTube name. So yeah, check that out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this video. Bye!